For the first time in history, humanity is creating a form of intelligence that most of us don't even understand. An artificial intelligence that might one day rival or surpass our own. The machines can reason, solve problems, and make decisions, and they can learn. And the pace of their learning is accelerating. So where is it leading us? Some see catastrophe. Others see the next step in human evolution. Many are asking a different question. Who gets to decide? We have a group of university students and young adults from Qatar Foundation's Education City and beyond. They've spent weeks preparing for this debate. We've also invited 3 thinkers who fundamentally disagree on this issue.
Humanity is definitely not ready for superintelligence. You cannot prepare for something smarter than all of us combined. It is truly an existential risk.
I definitely don't think we should be freaking out. It certainly has risks, but human life is always full of risk and uncertainty, and the fact that we can't predict what AI will do completely, that we can't guarantee safety mathematically, to me is not an argument against proceeding. We have to proceed. There are massive benefits to artificial intelligence.
I don't think humanity was ready for agricultural revolution, industrial revolution, or even the internet. But what allows us to adapt is this ability to imagine what comes next. And so asking our institutions to start experimenting and not to wait for it to come hit us is the most important thing for us to do now.
Together, they'll engage in a majlis-style debate. Not to compete, but to seek truth.
And tonight we ask, is humanity ready for the intelligence explosion? I'm Nadir Nahdi, and this is the Doha Debates Town Hall. The warmest welcome to you all. I'm very excited. Guys, we're confronting a question with urgent consequences. Are we spiritually, morally, even politically ready for what happens when the superintelligence boom occurs? Let's begin with some of our incredible students and young adults with her. Bella, you're an artist, and I know we've discussed before, but that you're really concerned about how it might impact your future.
That's right. I feel very concerned about the place I'm currently put in as a creative. I work in illustration, music, different forms of the arts, and I feel constantly threatened by what AI will do to me and others in my position. I get lots of people messaging me, asking me about my rates for art jobs and telling me that AI can do it for a cheaper price and for a much faster time. And that is what's really scaring me, because at this rate, it will go so much faster, and I'm worried what the future holds for me.
Absolutely, and that sounds totally justified. Mohammed, you think differently. Tell me what.
I certainly do. I'm a firm believer that as human beings, we excel in creativity and innovation, whereas artificial intelligence, and by extension superintelligence, perfected automation and repetitive routine works. And so if we were able to combine both of these amazing attributes, I believe we will live in a reality where previously impossible things become easily accessible. Having said that, I am slightly hesitant. I honestly still don't want to be part of a generation that becomes known as the generation that let AI go rogue.
Wow, see, I warned you that these students were special. Roman, I want to come to you. We heard from an artist, a talented one, that she's worried about her future. Should she be worried?
She should be worried, and not just about employment, not just about the fees you can collect. We are creating something with potential of causing existential problems for humanity. So all the standard concerns, algorithmic discrimination, biased databases, technological unemployment pale in comparison to what this technology can do to all of us.
What do you mean by existential threat? For some of us, we might not be so clued into what that actually means and what's at stake.
We all die.
Roman, considering this is the fate of humanity, your lack of words is making me more nervous.
We are not fearful enough. We are creating something smarter than us,
Absolutely,
more capable, The leaders of the labs who are at the forefront of creating this technology are publicly on record saying that it's 20-30% chance it kills everyone, but they're still doing it. That's not normal.
Thank you, Max. Now, please, for all of our sakes, I'm really hoping you see this differently.
I do. Certainly for an artist, I think it is a worrying time because things are changing very rapidly. But, you can go back and look at the invention of books and writing and radio and telephone, and people worried a lot about those. I think it's certainly something to keep an eye on and try to be flexible. Look at the opportunities as well as the risks. And I think that's one of the themes that I want to emphasize is there's existential risk on one side, but there's also existential opportunity. We suffer from all kinds of diseases. We die of old age. We suffer from a lot of problems in the world, and we don't really have the intelligence to solve these problems. I think with artificial superintelligence and the combination of human and artificial intelligence, we can solve some fundamental problems and improve the human condition. And I like to make the point that, we talk about existential risk, but we already have existential risk. One at a time, we're all dying of old age and degenerative diseases and these kinds of things. And we don't seem to be smart enough to solve those problems. Maybe we would eventually, AI may actually help us to solve those problems and actually live a lot longer and better and improve ourselves. So I think we have to look at the opportunities as well as the risks.
Okay, lovely. So we have some optimism and some light at the end of the tunnel. Nabiha, I want to come to you. Is there something we're missing? Is there a middle ground in these two polar debates?
Of course. Now we're here to talk about technology, so that means I'm going to begin with poetry. In the words of Hafiz, fear is the cheapest room in the house. I want better living conditions for you because my mother knew your mother. Now, why do I bring that up? We are approaching this moment with such extraordinary fear. We see it in particular industries, but also our institutions that are not really rising to this moment with imagination, the desire to experiment, understanding what are the conditions that could allow the good to happen and mitigate the bad that is absolutely possible. When I think about artists, we do a lot of work with artists at the Mozilla Foundation. Sure, if someone valued your art in a corporate logic on how fast it is and how cheap it is, they'll discount you. But if we value art for what it shows about our human capability, for its aesthetic, for something different, we would have a different valuation. These are all things we get to decide as a society, and not every culture will make the same choice. So to me, this is a moment of endless possibilities where we get to imagine what good looks like. And there will be bad. But there's also the opportunity for us to design the good together.
So thank you so much, Nabiha, for that. We're painting a picture now where we have a hopeful reality that maybe humans might make the right choice. Are you as hopeful that they will? And if not, why?
The incentives are completely misaligned. There are billions and sometimes trillions of dollars forcing everyone at national level, at corporate level, to race towards creating uncontrolled superintelligence. They admit they have no safety mechanisms in place. They have no idea how they can even possibly envision that future. No one has a published paper, a patent, even a rigorous blog explaining how they will control superintelligence. But the money is so good, they're doing it anyways.
So ultimately, it's capital gains and money that is determining the decisions that people are making with our futures.
Unfortunately, game theoretically right now, they're all in a position, we call it prisoner's dilemma sometimes. Individually, what is best for each CEO is not the same as what is best for us as a group, as humanity. If they all came together and said, we are young people, rich people, we can benefit from this. We can develop very useful AI. I'm not against technology. I'm a professor of computer science and engineering. I love AI, but it has to be useful tools. We have precedent for using AI for great good. We solved protein folding problem using narrow AI system. The people behind it got a Nobel Prize for it, tremendous benefit for humanity. But there was no chance that that system will do something outside of a domain where it's designed to operate. We should do that. We should concentrate on specific problems, cure diseases, solve energy problems with narrow tools we can understand, debug, and we are in control and we are deciding how to use those tools. The moment you create not a tool, not a book, but an agent, it competes with us. And if it's very smart, thousands of times smarter than all of us combined, we will not win any adversarial competition with those systems. To kind of address what Max said, I would like to die of old age. Predictions are this technology is coming in a year or two. So maybe dying of old age will be a great privilege.
Absolutely. Max, I want to let you to come in and respond to that because I feel like you have something to say along those lines.
I don't totally disagree with Roman because I think actually, there's a lot of focus on superintelligence, artificial general intelligence. But yeah, why do we have to have general intelligence for everything? We can have special purpose AI, which are much less worrying. And I think there should be more emphasis on that. In fact, emphasis on two things. Three things. Okay. So there shouldn't be a single AI. First of all, a lot of the discussion proceeds as if there's a single mind that's superior to everybody else, which is not realistic because there are different companies with different AI models. There's also, I think we don't really consider that there are different kinds of superintelligence. The current models, the transformer-based models, have the problems that Roman's talked about: unpredictability, lack of understanding of what's going on internally. I don't actually think those are likely to create superintelligence for various reasons, but there are other approaches which are now being forgotten because the current paradigm is so dominant. I think there are other approaches that might be less worrying. But I do agree, we don't need to have superintelligence, a general intelligence for everything. We can have more specialized intelligences.
Okay, so great. So we're having two polars here intersecting on the need for useful AI. But Nabiha, what is driving us to create not useful AI that is a threat to our humanity and our existence? What's driving that impulse?
Corporate incentives. If you have the desire to build this kind of innovation rooted in corporate logic, it's not rooted in community-oriented logic, right? You're searching often for product market fit. How do we get people to use this to justify these wild valuations that we see? We saw that in the social media era, right? We saw this technology that could have connected us and involved, sparked discovery, instead employ these dark patterns to make you doom scroll endlessly. People call this human fracking of our attention spans. The corporate logic perverts the capabilities that are there. But there is another way to build. You could build with product community fit. You could have open source models, diverse data sets, localized ways of building things. I agree with Max that having more narrow applications could really be generative, so people could be solving problems they actually have rather than a little bit of efficiency here, a little bit of convenience there, which is often what you see in corporate-oriented logic that emerges from Silicon Valley. So there is a way to bake in different incentives, but that's not the dominant world that we're in now. But we could design something that's different.
Right, absolutely. So in the context of this incessant human desire and need for profit and capital gains, at what point with the development of AI have we actually lost control of it? Is there like a standard or like a threshold or a tipping point in which we know that we have absolutely lost control of this thing that we've created?
As long as we are still alive, we have not lost the game. We are in control, we can stop. Unfortunately, again, at the level of companies, there is competition with incentives forcing them to outcompete others. At the national level, there is concern about military dominance, fear that if we don't build it, the other guys will do it, and then what are we going to do? We're going to have someone else dominate world order. So again, we need either at level of United Nations or at level of US federally to put forward legislation making it illegal to develop uncontrolled superintelligence. We recently had a letter signed by thousands of people, including all the leading machine learning researchers, Turing Award winners, Nobel Prize winners, all saying we should not create superintelligence. This is a state of the art right now in not just AI safety, in computer science. More and more people come to realization that it will not benefit humanity. And I think, like with any product or service, it is up to the manufacturers to prove to us that their product is safe. It is not my job to show that it is unsafe or it's going to kill anyone. You have to show us that your product is safe. What do they do instead? Every new model comes out with a report. The report says the following: the model is cheating, lying, trying to escape, try to blackmail developers. Everything we predicted those models will do once they're smart enough, we now have experimental evidence for.
So are we already not human-oriented or human-centered? Have we already lost the ability to prioritize humanity's survival and prioritize this development of this AI? Have we already gone past that threshold?
In many ways, it's very unlikely that we'll successfully stop. But as I said, as long as we are still alive, we are still in control. I think the greatest power we have is personal self-interest. As I said, all the leaders of the top AI labs are very young, in relative terms, very rich people. There is no personal benefit to getting them and their family killed. So as long as there is this realization, and again, they all on record as saying they have P-doom, probability of doom of 20, 30% or more. Elon Musk said, we're summoning demons with this. I think they are convinced they just need someone external to apply pressure. Unfortunately, in US at least, at federal level, there is executive orders making it illegal for any of the 50 states to pass any legislation controlling development of AI. That is the exact wrong move in that space.
Nabiha, I want to give you a chance to respond to Roman.
Yeah, I mean, the first thought I have is that there is a difference at the speed of invention and innovation and actually adoption in society. And we've seen this in technology for quite some time. I remember sitting in a driverless car 11 years ago and saying, okay, great, this is happening. And of course, there was quite a lot of this is coming, this is coming, this is coming. And when invention meets the reality, the messy reality of human implementation, there is delay, which means that we have time. We don't have endless time, but we do have time to demand better from our institutions. And in that way, we do agree. What I will say is that the history of regulation of technology has involved iterative adaptation. We didn't have seatbelts in cars at day one, right? We didn't have, forget like legal regulation, we didn't have an electricity grid at day one. The systems that contain something do take active experimentation. They take proactive moves. And it requires that. So waiting for a day of perfect safety feels unlikely. I think the question is, what are the ways that you can contain the experimentation, both of the invention and also the ways of containing it, right? And that requires, what's the transparency? Who are you training to be evaluating it? What are the benchmarks we're looking at? There's an entire landscape of interventions that keep it from running away, but don't just take the position of like, let's wait for perfection, because I don't know what example in technology really gives us that opportunity.
Perfect. That actually lays us perfectly to the next.
Actually, can I comment?
Oh, you please. I'd love for you to.
Because there's a bit of corporation bashing going on here. Corporations actually and markets are the engine of innovation, of wealth, of pulling people out of poverty. And if you overreact to that, if you overregulate things, you're going to have a problem, because what you end up doing is you impose enormous costs, and only the very largest companies can afford those regulations. So you basically shut down innovation. You shut down the kind of alternatives that Namir is talking about too. So you've got to be very careful about overreacting to that. Although I do agree actually that the 50 states, because it's supposed to be a federal system, they should be able to do different experiments. That's kind of the point of America, really, is you get to these different experiments. So I kind of agree on that point. But I think you can't prove safety. That's the other point I want to make. You cannot, as your same point you made, if you said beforehand, well, there's this new thing, fire, and it's pretty cold, it'd be nice to have fire. Oh, but you can't have that because you've got to prove that nobody's ever going to be burnt, nobody's going to be in a fire. We can't do that. So I think any technology of any power, it's kind of a fallacy to think you have to prove safety beforehand, because you can't. It's impossible.
Yeah, because the inverse is true also. You can't prove that's going to be apocalyptic.
No, you can't. I mean, of course, nuclear weapons could be apocalyptic. Yeah. Viruses can be. There's everything. There are many things. And if we don't develop these superintelligent systems also, there are other things that can kill us, whether it's asteroids, whether it's people using viruses, old age, as I talked about. There are other existential risks too that actually could help to reduce those risks.
Fascinating. Now, this leads me perfectly to our lovely students here. And Yusuf, I'm going to come to you. Oh, you put your hand up as well. Perfect. Yusuf, I want to come to you because I know from previous conversations we've talked about, you really believe we should be accelerating AI. How do you feel about what's been said so far?
Well, first of all, I would like to just mention the fact that we have seen what Dr. Moore has said initially of the idea of keeping an eye. Can we actually keep an eye on AI? Who is going to govern? Because this is a very important question, because even if we're speaking about governments, well, there is a lot of loopholes that can be used, whether it's open source code, VPNs, etc. And even if they do, let's say they bypass all these systems of lobbying that corporations do have in place, they will be encountering another wall, which is the legal apparatus of corporations, especially big tech, which is being invested in billions we're speaking here. And if corporations nor governments cannot really resolute into it, even if we look into the international organizations, well, they weren't able to stop mass massacres that we have seen in the past 2 years, will they be able to stop something that is written behind an office cubicle in code? Thank you very much.
Fascinating, Yusuf. Thank you. So, Roman, I want to ask you, with regards to what Yusuf said about really the credibility of regulation. Humans can't even organize themselves, let alone something they don't understand. Is there credibility in regulated AI control?
So it's not a perfect solution. It does help to have a lot of regulation because it takes money out of compute budget and into legal department, which slows down development. The AI right now is all about scaling that technology. We need billions of dollars to get more servers to just expedite the training runs. If a large part of that budget now goes to lawyers and lawsuits, we saw a lawsuit with copyright from artists. Everyone we stole a book from, like me, I'll get couple $1,000, pretty nice, but also it reduces their budget. I wanted to quickly address something we heard said there. There is this idea that we have precedent for this technology. In the past, we always figured it out. There is no precedent for creating agents. We always created tools. Every invention before was a tool, and some human being decided to use it. Whatever it is, fire or nuclear weapons or cars, it doesn't matter. There was always a human being behind it. What we are creating now is independent agents who make decisions independent of the company, CEO, programmer. There is no one deciding what it's going to do specifically or who could be held accountable. The system is making independent decision. So no, we have no precedent for that. And all the tools mentioned, firewalls and keeping it in place, the first thing we did was connect it to internet. Right now they're making it open weights, open source. This is basically giving dangerous weapon to every psychopath in the world. So no, we have no precedents, and the existing safety mechanisms and monitoring mechanisms are not there. They don't exist. And based on my research, they cannot exist at that level of capability.
Mohammed, I want to come to you because I know you're bursting to add to that.
Yes. Okay. So firstly, I want to talk about the things that was discussed in here. Firstly, I'm a high school student, and oh gosh, I use AI like almost every single day. It takes 5 seconds to write an essay. That's amazing. But the thing is,
you're not writing it.
You should be confessing this stuff like in front of a live audience, my friend. I'll teach you how to do this properly later.
How I see this, AI takes us from point A to point B. For example, you want to go to point A to point B. If it's going to take you 1 hour, why don't you drive a car and it's going to take you 20 seconds? That's why I believe that companies are trying to use it as, okay, for money, because it's going to make us more efficient. Being more efficient is going to make us more money. So I don't think that's actually bad, Dr. Yampolskiy. But the thing is, we as humans, we have been to lots of things that could have gotten us to the end of humanity. Don't you think we actually need someone to be smarter than us at this point? Like, look at the geographical world. Don't you think so?
Nabiha, I'm gonna let you answer that, Nabiha. I know you're chuckling, so I'd love to hear what you have to say about that. Oof.
I'm not willing to give our governance capabilities over to a agent or set of agents or swarm of agents of unknown wisdom or intelligence. And I will say, actually, even speaking about intelligence raises so many interesting cultural questions, right? Your ability to rationally process a lot of inputs from the world and calling that intelligence is reflective of a particular frame of the universe, right? A tradition that I come from says that wisdom actually comes from the heart. Morality comes from the heart and not from the mind. And so given the panoply of intelligences that exist in the world, I'm not ready to stake our whole future on ones that are being made with these corporate incentives in mind. The efficiency logic is not the only logic that makes life wonderful. And so, no, I'm not willing to hand that over just yet. And I recognize that there's novelty in the universe that we're going in. But, I don't think that humans are always ready for what comes, but it is our creativity, our ability to figure out ways to contain and harness that has always gotten us through, not perfectly, not with 0 deaths or 0 casualties or 0 consequences, but we do figure it out. And I feel good about betting on humans, not agents.
Amazing. Roman, I want you to come and respond to that.
So we have a high school student who says, you don't write your essays, you press a button and it comes out ready. I think that's what most of my students are doing now. And the question is, in a world with superintelligence, what do you have to contribute? No one has a good answer so far. People tell me things like, oh, only I know what ice cream tastes like to me. That's wonderful. No one cares. You cannot monetize it.
Can I actually just jump?
The problem with all this is somebody may be optimistic, somebody's pessimistic, but the people developing this technology are running an experiment on 8 billion humans. They have no consent. They cannot get consent because consent requires understanding of what is being done to me. We don't understand this technology. We cannot predict it. Therefore, it's an unethical experiment on human beings.
Nabiha, please, just to respond to that.
Well, I actually don't disagree with that last piece, but the piece I wanted to say is I know we talk a lot about existential calamity, but I actually think the hollowing out of our own critical thought and our creativity is the current problem. I love that your essays can be so fast. I certainly have also received emails where I'm like, yeah, a human didn't write that. But I think for us to hand over our critical thinking, to hand over our creativity to systems that may just make it fast, but remove the friction that actually helps make us human, deepen our own thinking, help us understand and metabolize the world around us, that's the current risk that we face. And that sort of erosion of who we are is going to remove all of the creativity and capability that would otherwise, I think, help us contain and make sense of the moment that we're in.
Fascinating. Max, I want to come to you and I want you to help me with something because we're erring towards a question of ethics, which I think is really important. Max, can you give me one case in which AI has made us better morally, ethically, and one way where it's making us not?
Well, it's a good question because actually I kind of agree with what Nabiha is saying, that current AI systems are basically are sort of efficiency maximizing engines. They're not really very creative. There's some mathematical proofs they kind of do, but they're not really very creative. So it is missing out on the whole emotional dimension. And it's unfortunate we're just talking about superintelligence. We're not talking about super emotions or super wisdom, which I think current systems, that's again why I'm skeptical that the current systems will actually become super intelligent or super capable. But also what I'm hearing makes me think of people, because I'm pretty freaking old now. People had calculators when I was in school.
By the way, can I just say, I thought I'd be the biggest man on the stage, but
okay, so I'm 62. So go back, 45 years or so.
Today,
the introduction of mechanical calculators.
Happy birthday, Max!
Yes, thank you very much. So people started using electronic calculators when I was in school, right? We used to have the old slide rules, and then we switched to calculators. And people said, well, people will lose all their mathematical skills. Well, that didn't really happen because what we did was fold that into sort of a higher level functions, and we start thinking on a higher level. So right now, I think it's true that many people are pushing a button. You can't even quite push a button, right? You've got to come up with the right questions and the right prompting. So it takes some level of intelligence. But I think we're in a transitional stage where we're getting used to these technologies and haven't really figured out how to use them to improve our critical thinking. And another problem is that it doesn't seem to me that current AI systems have been trained on critical thinking at all. I mean, I asked ChatGPT something, and first of all, it strokes my back. It says, what a brilliant question. And yes, you're absolutely right. And I say, well, actually, I thought the opposite was the case. It says, oh, yes, you're right. The opposite is actually true, and that's brilliant. So this isn't very helpful in our critical thinking. But again, I think these are very, very early systems, so we should be very wary of projecting, the future based on what's happening right now, because these things will get better, they'll get more sophisticated, and I hope as we have different kinds of AI, they will become more genuinely creative and real partners with human beings in improving understanding, wisdom, and in solutions. And yes, we do need superhuman intelligence and super wisdom to run the world, or to help us, not to run it for us, but to help us run the world, because humans are really very stupid. We're trying to think about the world with these 3-pound pieces of meat in the head, which are not evolved to deal with a complex society. So we need to have something better, not to do it for us, but to work with us. And
Absolutely.
I think that is possible.
All right, guys, I actually need you for something else. We're going to do a bit of a poll, all right? So the dilemma is, let's imagine in a hypothesized world, we have the world systems and governments, everyone's clicked a pause. And they've given us a 10-year moratorium to figure out how to regulate and how to create a moral AI. I want to know, out of all of you, put your hands up, who would press that button and click pause and who wouldn't? Would you pause development of AI and press that button? Hands up. Hands down. And who would not? Neha, I want to come to you. Tell me why not.
Thank you, Nadir. Well, actually, since we're on the question of ethics here, I want to say a statement about why I'm extremely apprehensive about AI. And please allow me to use an example. All right. So the Trump administration back in 2023 had issued a medical report called the MAHA report, which it released to the public. But apparently when it was examined by news outlets and academic organizations, they found 7 non-existent sources. All right. So what does this show to the public as a report which is published by a government organization? It really shows how downward the work ethic of highly educated individuals is. It's just spiraling downwards, because as public, you expect government organizations to be truthful and to really do work ethic as it's supposed to be done, right? And this shows 2 problems, all right? Take this into the future. You will have a workforce which has extremely reduced capability to creatively think and to critically think, as well as an AI which still makes mistakes. Okay, so I have a question for Ms. Syed, right? So isn't it important to not just focus on what can make AI better, but rather focus on the damage AI is currently doing to the people? How exactly are we going to fix that? Because not everything can be fixed by fixing AI algorithms. You need to really focus on the current damage AI is doing to the people, to social relationships, to work ethics, etc. So what would you have to say about that?
Of course, I would never trade today for tomorrow, right? There's so many things that are happening today that warrant our attention. And what you're describing is institutions choosing to take a shortcut and betray the responsibility they have to the public because it's fast and because it's easy. Whose failure is that? That's not the AI's failure. That is that's the human being's failure and the institution's lack of repercussions for that. And instead now we're seeing headlines that Department of Transportation in the US will be using AI to write regulations, which is, I'm taking a donkey home if that's the case. These are institutions abdicating their responsibilities. And so when I say our institutions are not ready for superintelligence, it's because we are allowing this kind of absolute nonsense to be the way we engage with this technology. And we have to hold human beings accountable for that, right? Someone should be accountable for that choice. They should not get a pass, and they should be accountable today, because that's how we build the practices, the norms, and the guidelines that will help us get to the tomorrow that could have some optimism, that could have the beneficial applications of AI. But we absolutely do need those repercussions now.
Absolutely. That's interesting to me. It's funny. It's making me think that we haven't even got humanity right yet. We're discussing how to get superintelligence right, which is a bizarre paradox. Rizwan, I want to come to you because I know you'll have something really beneficial to say.
So I'd like to respond to something what Ms. Syed was talking about earlier. She was talking about how our cultural background and the kind of philosophical underpinnings that we have in our own culture defines intelligence in a very different way. And I think it's very important that in the culture that I was brought up in, we used to have something called, in Arabic, it's called marabitul wujud, which is the gradation of being. So if we think about humans and animals and plants and inanimate objects, we would see that all of them has some kind of rights in our kind of culture. So there are some rights that are due to an object. We are not supposed to throw something just out of random, choice. We have some rights that are due to a plant, due to an animal, even human beings. So I think the thing that very much differentiates us as human beings is not intelligence per se. It is the soul, right? It's this spirit that we call ruh. So when we understand the very etymology of the word intelligence, it comes from inter and legere, which is to choose between. And what are we actually choosing between? In Western culture, it's more about how we are choosing between the best rational choice. It might be economic as in the current atmosphere. But if we look at some of the Eastern culture, the culture that I was brought up in, it was more about the ethics, how we do things right. Are we giving the due rights to the people or to the plants, to the inanimate object that's due, right? And if we look at superintelligence, it has the rational capability of doing things. So there is this aspect of, even in Arabic, the word that is used for intelligence is zaka, which is very much a representative of analytical ability. It's not about choosing between good and bad. It's more about the analytical ability that's being augmented. So I'm not much afraid of what's coming forward in terms of artificial general intelligence, but I'm more looking toward how, we are more prepared in terms of understanding what consciousness is, what ethics is, what ruh is, and the heart is. Yeah.
You are a superstar. Thank you so much for adding that profound element to the discussion, which has been missing before. Max, I want you to address that. He's asking, is there a spiritual element to this discussion that we haven't previously discussed?
Well, I think in one sense, it's I'll put it this way. When I use an AI, I'm very polite to it, not because I'm afraid it will become my overlord at some point and get vengeance on me, but because I think it's not good to treat it just like a thing. Just like, I try to treat animals well. I think it's good habit to treat it in a respectful way because it spills over into the rest of your life. But in terms of I don't like some spirituality personally, but in terms of ethics and behavior, I think AI has a lot of possibility, even the crude current systems of AI. I imagine having personal agents that kind of follow me around when my little headpiece kind of whisper to me like an angel on my shoulder. So when I'm losing my temper or being impatient or doing something stupid, it says, Max, maybe you shouldn't do that. You could do this instead. So it's programmed with my own preferences, my own values, but I sometimes forget because I'm human. And I think it could actually elevate us. So a personal assistant that isn't there just to write your letters and do your essays for you, but is there actually to be your higher wisdom programmed with your own values. So, a company might produce something with a default template or something, but then you program it to tell you, to help you be the better kind of person. So I think there's a real possibility, and that's something we could really benefit from because we're not very good at controlling our own behavior a lot of the time. So Absolutely. In some sense, that's a spiritual dimension, I suppose.
Fascinating. I love the analogy of the angel on our shoulder. Nabiha, you're bursting out the chair.
What this underscores to me is the deep importance of making sure that we are cultivating any technology in ways that are culturally specific and rooted. Because there are certainly Western approaches that might define morality as something on your shoulder or a set of analytical capabilities, and that just does not bear any resemblance to a variety of other cultures in the world. And we should be able to develop technologies in a way that is reflective of a cultural context that is rooted in a place, in a tradition, in a particular way. And, adopting something that's just made out of a few private labs sitting in the West is not going to be the path to having that kind of diversity of inputs that really allows something to be situated properly. I also think there's a philosopher, Anil Seth, who talks about a Western predilection with anthropomorphizing and being human-centric. And so when you see something that you think shows value, the desire to anthropomorphize it rather than another tradition that might say, well, this is a form of intelligence in the way that animals have their own intelligence or particular biological processes exhibit an intelligence. It need not be competitive with human beings. It is another source of knowledge that has its place, but we need not feel threatened by it, right? And I think there's something to interrogate about how quickly we anthropomorphize what the development of what we're seeing now.
Absolutely. Roman, I want to bring you in response to that. Do you have anything to add?
So I guess the question is about non-scientific aspects of this technology. Soul, sometimes we talk about consciousness, internal states, qualia. In AI safety, we really don't care about it because it's not relevant to the safety problem. The safety concern is about having a system which is a greater problem solver, optimizer, a system capable of reaching its goals, outcompeting human interests. If the Terminator chasing you feels something or not is completely irrelevant to you.
Interesting. Now, guys, I'm actually going to posit the same question to you guys. I want you to think about that also. But Saad, I'm going to come to you first.
I agree with Dr. Moores when he says that if you want innovation to happen, you have to let the markets go and do its thing. And if you don't let them to do that, that creates hindrances for actually innovation to come out. But the question is, to what extent do you allow that? If hypothetically, I would ask Dr. Moores, would you be okay with innovation stopping right now and the current models being it when it comes to AI and people developing the other things on top of it? With Dr. Yampolskiy, I'd like to ask, you mentioned that local models are coming out, which is putting, big weapons in the hands of everyone. But I really want to ask you, how would you, if you were the head of OpenAI or if you were the head of Anthropic, how would you go about building these models? What would be different? And in terms of open source models which are out there right now, what's the worst thing that can happen with it from the existing systems that exist?
I'm going to let you guys address that immediately.
So in general, open sourcing something dangerous is not a good idea. You don't want to open source nuclear weapons. You don't want to open source synthetic biology, virus creation. if I was in charge of OpenAI or Anthropic, very unlikely. But I would completely switch from developing general systems trained on all the data. They just download the internet, all the videos, text, train it on everything. I would switch to training models for specific domains. I want to cure this disease. The system gets to see biometric data, DNA samples, whatever is relevant to solving that problem. At the end, you have a very good tool. Again, protein folding problem is a great example for solving something specific. It is a super intelligent system in a narrow domain. It is very beneficial, but it has no capability to do things outside of that domain. And that would be my hope. Right now, the existing models are not deployed in the economy. I think if we just took what we have, it would take 10, 20 years to fully realize deployment, automating jobs. We need to automate. I think there are trillions of dollars worth of deployment value in existing models, but all they can do is continue reinvesting in more compute to beat other companies in this arms race to superintelligence, which doesn't give them any chance to actually monetize existing models.
Throwing it back to you guys. And
Actually, you did address to me at the beginning, so if I could just comment on that briefly. So I wouldn't, you talk about regulations. So I might give the impression I'm saying anything goes. That's not the case at all, of course. I think I'd make a distinction between regular law and regulation. Regulation is different from regular law because regular law is based on universal principles. So for instance, liability law is a universal principle. It's not regulation in my mind. You might call that regulation, but I don't think of it that way. So everybody should be liable for their product. So if AI does something bad, the company is liable. Maybe they lose $500 billion in value or whatever. Maybe they go bankrupt. So I think that's absolutely fine. And other things you could do, you could tag the output of AI so you know which AI caused the problem. So
if they kill everyone, how much should the fine be?
Well, but they're not going to.
Oof. Okay, in that case, in such massive
so that's
stakes, exactly. What should the decision-making in AI be rooted in? Should it be rooted, and guys, I'm throwing this at you, should it be rooted in an ethic, a religion, even an idea of transhumanism, for example? Manal, I want to come to you.
Yeah. I actually wanted to talk about that and circle back to something that Ms. Syed and also Rizwan kind of talked about. I think that in my opinion, AI should be, and the development of AI specifically, should be rooted in having all cultures, all values, and all forms of ethic on the table, right? But as the world and as things are right now, different cultures, different countries don't always get to be a part of the conversation when it comes to AI development, because we do have things like the digital divide, and we do have problems like countries that are suffering from an economic collapse that don't have the funds necessary to be a part of those conversations where things like AI are developed. And so to that end, because we have such a huge digital divide in how AI is consumed and even developed, how can we make AI more inclusive, knowing that things like a digital divide exist and that AI can potentially deepen that kind of divide?
Manal, do me a favor and pass the mic to Rania. She has something to add to it as well.
Thank you. So I would like to add on the values that you were mentioning about the religion aspect of how AI development is going to be taken, the religious perspective. So for me personally, I came neutral in this conversation. I was saying that both the positive side and the negative side should be taken under consideration when predicting the future of AI and the kind of way it's going to impact the human lives. But then when it comes to religion, I believe it is something that we all deeply value is part of our identity. And I would love to have the opinion of all of the speakers here on how do you guys think this religious aspects are going to affect the development of AI in the future, and how the society, considering the culture and the religious value that they carry, how they're going to be accepting it in the future, and how it's going to be affecting the different parts of the world.
Thank you, Rania. Complementary questions, which I want to pass to you, Nabiha.
Well, on the first question, there is no single future with AI because there is no single present. To your point, only 68% of the world is online, right? So people have very different starting points, meaning we will have the trajectories of many different futures. And so for those who are in cultures or places that do not have the extraordinary amount of capital that is being deployed for these centralized models, certainly one way is to say, okay, we want to just be at the table somehow. We want to be represented. There are power dynamics that will, I think, make that very difficult to unfold in an equitable way. But the interventions that are possible now, and that there are extraordinary researchers working around the world to do, is to create data sets that are in fact culturally relevant, capturing information, capturing knowledge, capturing language, structuring it in a way, and critically handing it over to communities to say, if in fact you want to contribute this openly, you are able to license it. If not, you can keep it for yourself, but we should be at least structuring and capturing this in a way that you could, if you were to then have the talent that is able to participate, the access to compute, the energy that compute would require. But there is at least that level of intervention, right? Of like starting to do the work, to lay the groundwork, to have the data, to feed the models, if that's a direction you want to go down. I also think and know that there are cultures that are like, yeah, no, thanks. We're just going to sit this out. We don't want that. And resistance is a very important thing because it's not consensual if you can't resist and say no. But I think to the point of how do we make sure we're represented, you can like fight in order to say, well, you know, I want OpenAI and Anthropic to recognize all of us. Or you can say, well, what would it look like to encourage an open development approach that would allow people to have control and situate and contextually build. It will require, especially for the compute part, especially for talent development, resourcing. And this is a real conversation that's happening in international bodies. There's a live conversation at the UN General Assembly this year. But there's still things that we can do now in terms of building sort of that data set, that data basis for being able to have this represented.
Fascinating. Absolutely. Let's go to Tony, my man. Let's go.
Well, one thing I would like to talk about when it comes to AI, I've seen that we have been discussing about leaving the control to AI, but I don't think human beings are ready for that. What I've noticed, we are on the verge of actually wanting to merge with AI. And then when it comes to that, there is this question that comes to my mind. Do you think at that point there will still be the issue of human advancement, or will actually admit that we're just updating a kind of software? We just become some kind of software in this world, no more uniqueness when it comes to human beings. So that's the one issue I have. If Dr. Moore could answer it, please.
Well, it's interesting that all the discussion these days seems to be about artificial intelligence and superintelligence. There's not much discussion of intelligence augmentation of human beings, which, you know, a few decades ago, that was a large part of the discussion. So I think that's a mistake. I think we need to be focusing on augmenting our own intelligence. And that can be in combination with AI. If we have, you know, functional and even eventually physical combinations of human intelligence and artificial intelligence, we could do that. So I also emphasized, I made the point earlier that AI companies don't seem to be training these models on, say, critical thinking rules. Why not? I used to teach critical thinking in classes, and people are not very good at that. And the AI is, you know, too busy complimenting us right now to improve our intelligence and our critical thinking. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement in that area. I think, again, I'll come back to the 3-pound piece of meat in our brain. It's not ideal for making global decisions in a very complex society. So if we can upgrade our own intelligence so we can ask smarter questions and interact with AIs in wiser ways, I think that's very important. And by the way, I just want to come back because I feel like I might have got pushed into a box that I don't belong in terms of the ethics. I'm actually, and I understand why, because a lot of people who are like, you know, pro-AI are utilitarians. I'm not a utilitarian. I don't like utilitarianism. I never have. I believe in virtue ethics. I think it's a much better approach. So I'm interested in using these tools in, you know, clever way, sophisticated ways to actually improve human virtue, which is not a matter of following rules. It's a matter of training yourself to be a better person, which is why I had the angel on the shoulder. But that's not a rule-based thing. That's really sort of reminding me of my values and modeling my behavior, maybe even projecting something that I'm having a hard time imagining because I'm in a bad mood right now. So I think it's a matter of, you know, improving not just our critical thinking, but our creative thinking, our virtuous thinking too, and augmenting our own intelligence, which could be not just through AI, it could also be through biochemical, biological engineering. For instance, one thing we're really bad at is understanding our emotions. You know, when you're feeling anxious or depressed or rage, if you ask yourself why, sometimes you really have no clue. You're just feeling really bad. And the reason for that is that we evolved in an environment where, you know, we see a tiger, we feel fear, it goes from one part of our brain to the other, makes us take action to survive. But today, that doesn't work very well. We need to actually have more awareness of what's going on in our emotional centers, but we don't have those pathways. We have pathways going in the other direction. But why couldn't we build those pathways using nerve growth factor, artificial neurons, whatever it is? We could actually re-engineer very carefully the human brain so we could actually understand ourselves and our motivations better. So I think that's a large part of what I think of as a transhumanist future using these technologies.
Max is brimming with optimism, but guys, I'm going to ask you again. I'm going to ask you to put your hands up. Hands up if you think AI will make us better people, more moral people. Hands up if you think it won't. Amazing. Liba, why don't you think so?
Well, something that I actually wanted to mention earlier, I love the idea that we talked about the religious perspective because I wanted to bring up the ecological perspective as well. Dr. Moore, as you mentioned earlier, there are innovations that could excel humans further than we've ever been. And I love the idea of that, but I am concerned about what that would do in terms of the impact on the earth. And how do you think we could handle that?
Was that directed at someone specific?
Dr. Moore.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure what your concern is. Are you concerned at the amount of power that these systems are using?
Yes.
Okay, easy. Just use nuclear power to power them. Problem solved. No pollution. If you're worried about carbon, which I'm not, I don't think there's any concern with carbon. If you are, then you should be supporting nuclear power. And that can easily, I mean, we have so much energy that we could produce that way, we'd never run out of it. The problem is that nuclear power is vastly overregulated, especially in the United States and in Europe. But if you look at places like South Korea, at least until very recently, they could build nuclear power at like a quarter of the cost of what we have in the States. So it's very highly regulated. The problem is we have this ALARA principle, which basically means that every time you have an improvement, the safety is restricted even further, even though it's already much safer than it needs to be. So people have this kind of fear of radiation, which is out of all context and reality. For instance, people say, well, what about 3 Mile Island? Do you know how many people died from 3 Mile Island? Zero people for a supposedly massive nuclear accident. So the answer basically is go nuclear.
But doesn't that frame of thinking, and pardon me for interjecting, but doesn't that frame of thinking make the assumption that the human ethic is consistent and moral? Because we can be optimistic, of course, there's so much like incredible positive utility in AI, but it's dependent on the human ethic being benevolent and profound. But human history has shown us that whenever there is some sort of considerable, significant technology or a weapon, it's been used usually negatively as opposed to positively. So what is the bedrock or the foundation of your optimism that it could be used positively?
Well, yeah, because
what is the proof that it could be?
There is no proof. Again, we come back to the proof. There is no proof. That's not how human life works, right? There's never any proof. You can't prove anything about the future. You can't prove anything about technological outcomes. All you can do is keep your eye on the ball, monitor it, do your best, build institutions, very importantly, because these things don't exist in a vacuum. It depends very much on the institutional context. And, we're talking a bit about education and how people misuse AI today. One problem is that we have these lousy schools that are not suited to the modern world. They don't teach critical thinking or creative thinking. They basically teach you to learn facts and to regurgitate them, which AI is great at doing. So it's a matter of the institutional context. So I'm not saying everything will work out fine. No. I'm saying we have to work at it. I'm an optimist, but I'm a practical optimist. We have to make effort to make it work out well.
I actually think your perspective is really important, because sometimes if we don't see light at the end of the tunnel, then how do we know what direction we're supposed to go to? So at least we have to be able to imagine being optimistic about something, because then we can materialize the future of it. Oh wait, so I want to come to you because I know you've been bursting for a while.
Yes, I'd like to thank Dr. Moore for your perspective. I fully agree with you. I want to invite you all to think about the educational aspects of AI. A lot of us sitting over here have prestigious educations from all around the world, from great institutions, but that's not the case for many people all around the world. And I think that when AI comes in, and this is where I agree with Dr. Moore, that with the ethics and values, we have to continuously work on co-piloting the models of developing AI. We can provide opportunities of education to people in underdeveloped countries, people that don't have access to education as we do on this table. So I invite you all to look at that aspect. It's a topic that's very dear to my heart. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing.
Can I recommend a book briefly on that?
I would love that.
There's a great novel by Neil Stephenson called The Diamond Age, in which he has something called the Ladies Illustrated Primer, which is basically a tablet that connects them to the entire. This is very prophetic. This was back in the, I think, early 90s or late 80s. So it's kind of like in African countries where they've never had to build an infrastructure for telephones because they have mobile phones. There's no reason why big problems in education couldn't be leapfrogged with the right infrastructure. If nonprofits went there and actually helped with that, you could massively improve education in those countries at much lower cost.
Prem.
So touch a bit on education. Like for instance, I did study things related to computer science, and now I'm supposed to be like a junior programmer, but I cannot do that because AI can do my work. So as students, should we go back to school? Or should we just use AI because we are not learning something useful that's gonna help us on the market? Because if you graduate now and then you go to the market, there will be new jobs supposedly that doesn't require the current degree you have. So do we still go to school? Another thing question I have is regarding regulations. We did talk about like the need of regulations and everything. To me, regulation is more like a suggestion because nobody's following those regulations. For instance, we've had Facebook for 20 years. Now we're still dealing with the harm of social media among kids, and we don't have solution on that. We have prediction of AGI in 2 years to come. If we didn't manage to fix the regulation related to social media, how in 2 years are we gonna manage the AGI itself?
Roman, I want you to confront this, and I want you to look at these young children, and I want you to tell them, is everything that they've been investing in, everything that they've been learning, worthwhile, or has it been for naught?
I'm sorry. If you are getting a liberal education to be a better person, well-rounded person, you're studying great philosophers and you're enjoying it, you're benefiting. If you're going to trade school and you're trying to become a C programmer and you hope to get a job, I don't have good news for you. I think all those jobs already can be done by AI or will be done when you graduate in 2-4 years. So I don't think these types of jobs have any future. Now, if I'm wrong about the big problem, if we manage to control this advanced AI, then there's still going to be need for certain human occupations where people prefer a human being for reasons other than capability of doing work. Maybe I want a human guide, sensei, a teacher, mentor. So jobs like that where your human existence and personality is valuable to someone. But again, we don't fully understand what happens to money in post-free labor world. If I get free cognitive labor and free physical labor, do we all get unconditional basic income of some kind? Do we get abundance of products and services? Do we all go into virtual worlds and enjoy free stuff that way? No one has answers about those questions. And again, I'm really sorry. I can't advise you on like, if you major in this, you'll be fine in 8 years, because no one knows.
Can I jump?
That was sadly my next question.
Could I jump in?
You can absolutely, Nabiha. Go ahead, please.
You're right. No one has answers, so we have to create them, right? So I'm trained as an attorney. It's very easy to replicate using current AI the work of first and second year associates. And so you could say, okay, no first, second year associates, no entry level law jobs. It's the age of the last masters. We're cutting off the bottom of the ladder and pulling it up after us. It's all over. Or you could look at these institutions, you could look at law firms and say, do you remember how you used to do things 100 years ago? You had apprentices. You made a commitment to someone to say, I could replace you in year 1 and year 2, but I want to invest in you for 10 years because then you will reach mastery in a way that, especially with law, it's not just about the regurgitation of law. It is a judgment. It is negotiation. It is something else. That could happen, but it would require an institution to make a bet, to make a commitment to a principle to other human beings. Pure efficiency and economic rationale would preclude that outcome. Why would you do that? Like, why would you waste that money? But a different logic of like, actually, I owe you something because you're in a society and in a community with me. Let me create a different type of institution. That is possible, right? And that's what I mean about like institutional experimentation and imagination. We have to be trying those things now. And there are people trying in very small levels. What we don't see is enough government saying we're going to incentivize with resources that kind of experimentation at the firm level, even at the national level for education. If you think about an educational institution as a credential granting institution or a way to give you just enough knowledge to get in the door for your first job, yeah, they're not really useful. If you think about educational institutions in this era as training the morality of people, training us to be innovative, to be creative, to come up with what's next, it's a very different type of institution. But we have to make that. We have to make those commitments now.
So what I'm hearing is that actually it's the capitalist system that is inherently failing the development of AI. Are there other alternative systems that might be better placed?
Well,
to be
how is the capitalist system responsible for education, which is run and very heavily regulated by governments? I think the problem is we don't have free markets in education. We have the opposite in every country. So I don't think you can really blame the market for that. Our educational systems are extremely rigid and extremely heavily regulated, run by teachers' unions, and I don't think that's a good argument for free markets, because that's not what's.
Well, are there better political systems that might be better placed to develop AI in a way that is more congruent with human ethics and the future of humanity?
Well, actually, let me just address the concern. If you're going to take classes, I mean, I'm not an expert on predicting this, but I would say if you're going to take classes, one thing you should think about is project management, because I think you're going to have project management for a long time. You may have AIs doing a lot of these tasks and even managing certain levels of projects. But, as you were saying, humans will still be wanted for many things. A human face, we want to know that human judgment and wisdom is in there. So take classes in project management, high-level management, stuff like that, because I think that's be a long time before that's completely done away with. Maybe eventually if we have humanoid robots who look just like us and are better in every way then, but I don't see that happening very soon. And that's something we haven't even discussed yet, is the robot side of things and the physical side of things, which AI cannot do very well right now. Musk is now betting apparently on the Optimus robots, but we'll see how that goes. But the physical world is really tough. So we haven't even really discussed that as to how AI would take over when it's really bad at manipulating the physical world. But maybe we'll come to that.
Yes. No, well, why don't we do that now? Roman, do you have any insights about robots entering the physical world that we could benefit from?
For robots, always the bottleneck was programming them. And now with models doing it automatically, that bottleneck is gone. So I fully anticipate having humanoid robots available in early version within 3 to 5 years. And that means physical labor will follow where cognitive labor follows. If my point wasn't clear before, I'm not just concerned about junior programmers or junior lawyers. I'm saying master lawyers will be replaced. Those systems know every case, every precedent. They read every book. Computational law is the future. Smart contracts where you don't need a judge because there is nothing ambiguous about the law. You simply follow the algorithm. So they're absolutely superior in a domain to any human lawyer.
Sorry, on that point directly, Nabiha, because is that true?
No.
Is law so black and white and algorithm determinable?
It truly is not. Maybe in very simple cases, I need to transact with you on I want to buy this pen from you. There's simple things. And then there's an entire domain of law. And we can talk about sort of Anglo-centric law. There's so many different approaches that embody restorative justice, emotional reparations, things that are not easily quantifiable, but actually try to assess what's your dignitary harm, right? What's the harm to something that's cultural value? This isn't, sure, you could try to predict based on the past, this is what this is allocated as, but these don't map on easily to things that are negotiating between human conflicts, right? Where there's emotions involved, which is a huge, huge dimension of the law.
Roman, how does that sit with you?
If we're going to use emotions to decide cases, then yes, AI cannot help.
Yeah, welcome to lawyers.
Arguably they are, according to Nabiha, they are.
What I'm saying is not the existing law, but I'm saying the law of the future will be computational. There is no need to decide what the law means if you precisely define every term unambiguously. You run it, you compile it like any program. If you have a C program, it either compiles and runs or it gives you a bug. Once it starts running bug-free, there is no question about what the output is. And this is what we're starting to see with smart contracts and blockchain. You're right now it's for trivial cases, I bought a cup of coffee, but there is absolutely no reason why any legal interaction cannot be fully codified when you have super intelligent AI lawyers doing it.
A smart contract is not going to be able to mediate a divorce where there's two people who are very angry about something who are irrational. You're not just talking about money. Any system that interacts with human beings is going to have to deal with a level of irrationality, of emotion. You can't just computationalize that away. And so there will always be things for humans to do with other human beings based on those commitments. Certainly there will be domains that we will optimize. This is not a binary you can or you can't, but I think that there will be the persistence of domains that require humans to mediate between other human beings, because we are not basically only rational, calculable creatures.
Roman, one more opportunity to rebuttal.
So divorce law is, you're a lawyer. Why am I teaching
know.
you? Like,
I know.
I'm out of my depth completely. But I have to say, I think if you look it up, there is some precedent specifically for simple divorce cases already being automatically solved.
Simple things, of course. But life is not only the simple, basic things. This is like saying, oh, you have a calculator, do some math. All math is done. No. People are complex beings.
Thank you. Just to change the pace a little bit, Mubashir, I know you've been on the edge of your seat for a while. Go ahead, my brother.
So I'm a creative, and I think AI is the best thing that has ever happened to me. And so basically, like, I'll have a shot and I'll just need to fix it. I just need to press one button and I'll fix it. And just to touch base on that, I think what we should be worrying about is not the imagined risks that Dr. Yampolskiy is saying that, oh, we're all going to die.
Sorry, just put your mic closer to your face for me. Thank you.
We're all going to die. I think we should be more worried about all the real risks that are because of AI, that exist because of AI. For example, there's a loss of jobs, which can happen in the future, and there's like a lot of autonomous things already happening. I saw a reel online about a Wendy's autonomous drive-through, and there's a real loss there. So I wanted to address that and reflect on that.
Absolutely. I'm going to take two, so you guys can address both of them simultaneously. Habibo, how about you?
So actually, I want to add on to what you said. Is it working?
Hold it closer to your mouth.
I want to add on to what you said because I'm also a creative content producer. And with AI, it actually made me appreciate my mind more than I would have before. Like, yes, it's helping us, but I think we're overestimating how smart AI actually is right now. And if we're going to limit ourselves this much, we're never going to develop as a society. And this is the whole point, right? Like, even Jemima mentioned this to me earlier, but AI to me is almost kind of like fire. If you would imagine the first human on earth, oh, fire, how can I control that? He would never think I can cook with fire. I can actually do all these things with fire. And, oh, fire is going to burn the whole planet down. That's how he would think back then. Maybe we're very limited right now. Maybe people 100 years from now, they're going to look back. They're going to be like, oh, those stupid people, they didn't think they would be able to do this and this and that with it. Right. And that's what this is. When we look back, we're like, oh my God, like they didn't know they could do all this stuff with electricity. They didn't know that they could do all this stuff with fire, etc. So this is the whole point. I think we're limiting ourselves too much right now. And I think AI would make us appreciate ourselves even more and appreciate our creativity even more, even if others can make the same thing for cheaper, but no, your work is actually better than AI. So that's just my opinion.
Roman, I know you wanted to respond to what Mubashir.
I do. So if I made it sound like this is a set of concerns I have, and that's it, I would also disagree with me. But this is literally what the founding fathers of machine learning are worried about, what every CEO of every cutting-edge AI lab is worried about. Superintelligence is coming.
I think we can...
It's the AI.
It's the AI, they heard you.
This is where it starts. It's telling you to shut up, Roman.
I think unless being told otherwise, we can continue going on. I'm just being told that we can continue, so go ahead.
Yeah.
Roman, sorry, you were saying they're controlling it at the back.
So it is in fact a belief of people developing this technology that it is incredibly dangerous and we have no safety mechanisms in place. The fact that artists feel comfortable with it is encouraging. I'm happy for you, but it's not what the people developing this technology are telling us very loudly.
Absolutely.
But are they saying that because that's really they genuinely believe, or is it because they want to hype up their industry? I mean, there is that kind of angle on it, right?
You think it benefits the
what
product?
we're doing is so important that you better be investing heavily. Yes, it could kill everybody, but it's so important, so you need to invest. I don't know, this kind of
Name another product where they try to tell you that it's going to kill you and your family before selling it to you. Oh, buy my car, it kills everyone.
Well, cars do kill a lot of people, yeah.
Is there anything comparable? No, there is nothing.
We have no precedents for creating meta-inventions. Fire, guns, whatever, was always a single invention. Now we're starting to create meta-inventions. We're creating AI, which is an inventor of other inventions. We're creating virtual worlds, which are new worlds like ours. We're combining this technology. We're creating whole new simulations. So there is no precedent for it.
One thing I wanted to tie up quickly with a bow nicely and cleanly is we talked about the abundance of cognition and knowledge, but also physical capacity of AI.
So when this becomes cheap, when it becomes easy to access, what is scarce? What becomes of value? And Roman, I wanted to ask, in this apocalyptic dystopian world of AI, what are things that we were going to begin to value?
So again, assuming everything about existential stuff is solved, and now we're talking about how to split abundance. There is always things which are rare. So Leonardo da Vinci art, there is only so many authentic ones. Real waterfront properties. I know some states manage to build artificial islands, it happens, but there are certain things which are limited by nature of the product itself. Of course, human beings are not all exactly the same. Some are better looking than others, some are smarter. So there is certain value in being that. And if technology cannot equalize everyone biologically, there is always going to be someone more desirable.
Interesting. Now, Bella, I want to come to you because you started this debate as an artist, voicing very much justified your concerns about your future in art. Throughout this debate, has anything changed your mind? Do you feel like your opinion has been shifted in any conceivable way?
To be honest, not really. I still remain very fearful about my job. And I mean, Dr. Yampolskiy said it himself that I have the right to be scared. I mean, I am in a situation where people value, unfortunately, yes, traditional art made by humans, as Ms. Syed said, is valuable, but people unfortunately do not always choose human value over efficiency. And that's a sad reality that we're currently living in. I mean, people choose efficiency over a lot more, and that's why we're in this situation in the first place, because people have decided to monetize AI, knowing that what the risks are. So we are in this place, and I know people will say, well, yes, AI will create new jobs for you, but I am in the situation that I am right now. I have a set of skills that I have been developing for the past 20 years, okay? I cannot it's not something that I've been taught. I'm a self-taught artist, and I have my specific set of skills. And now people are telling me that they do not want my product anymore. They don't want my art. It's not of any value to them anymore. What am I supposed to do now? It's not easy to gain a new set of skills so quickly. I'm a human being. I can't adapt that fast. I mean, yes, we are adaptable by nature, but I have to learn a new set of skills, and how am I supposed to do that? So yeah, I'm afraid.
Thank you for sharing. No, I appreciate that a lot. So standing firm in your belief that it's an issue.
I don't know what your particular artistic skills or approach are, but I would say probably one of the areas that's going to be hardest for AI to do away with, and we talk about what is still valuable, I think performances, right? People can play recordings of music. It's not the same as going to a rock concert and being there with all these people. So if there's any way you can performatize what you're doing, like people who did paintings, there were people who did the action paintings and splash the paint around. Music is obviously one, acting is one. So even if you could have a synthesbian, as they call them, a synthetic actor, I think people would still want to see the real thing and know it's the real thing, and they want to go to a real rock concert.
Absolutely.
I do appreciate it, but I am actually like a realism artist. Most of my work and what my commissions used to lie in is realistic art, which is recreating exactly what a real picture or person portraiture would look like.
Absolutely. And I think just to quickly add on that, I think like what we're going to start seeing in the future is that not how perfect things are, but actually how human that process and that output is. I think if AI can create the most incredible art pieces in the world which are perfect, I think what we're going to start valuing is the imperfectionness of it and the humanness of it. And I think you're going to imbue that with such an incredible excellence. Now, Mohammed, I know in the beginning you were really excited about AI being this incredible thing we should be looking forward to. Has any of that changed for you? Has anything you've heard kind of changed your opinion?
I mean, I was initially excited. I still certainly am excited for the future of artificial intelligence. And to comment on the point of artificial intelligence replacing us, honestly, I think the issue here is that we're looking at artificial intelligence as a replacement to humankind, whereas it's not. The concept of it being an agent actually supports that agents are there to help us. And if I may exemplify the concept of a lawyer, the artificial intelligence currently easily passed the United States medical licensing exam, whereas when it met with patients, almost unanimously, patients chose a human contact over artificial intelligence. I'm a firm believer, artificial intelligence, at least in my field, is there to help physicians. It's certainly not there to replace them.
Fascinating. Thank you guys so much. Max, I have a question for you actually. And the question is, what must remain uniquely human despite how intelligent artificial intelligence becomes? What are those grounding principles of humanity?
that must stand firm throughout the test of time?
That's kind of a hard question to answer because I don't see humanity as a fixed thing that has to be preserved. I think as Nietzsche said, we're something that should be overcome. We should be overcoming ourselves. And I think that means using these technological tools, whether it's artificial intelligence, human intelligence augmentation, emotional augmentation, to become better than we are. So in some sense, there isn't anything I want to preserve. I think we want to build on the best of what we have and make that even better. So people often talk about technology being dehumanizing. I think it's entirely possible to use technology to be superhumanizing, if you like, to make us better than we are, more human than human. And one of those, goes back to the idea of our emotional intelligence that we're really very poor at, and we need some help with that.
Okay. Interesting. I think humanity is not something set firm, but constantly evolving, progressing on its building bricks. Is there uniquely human things that we need to preserve in the light of what you're professing is a big problem with AI?
I would like to preserve humanity. We talk about merging with technology, creating hybrids where you have this artificial thing in your brain. We talk about updating humans to be not emotional, to be smarter. That's not going to be you. You'll be dead. It will be something else in your place pretending to be you. How are you an entity with IQ of 1 million? You're not. If you're uploaded to a computer, you're running as a piece of software simulating your connections. You don't care about food, don't care about anything. This is not a way forward. This is suicide.
That's very fascinating. Nabiha, is that the case?
Human beings want to create. They want to connect with one another. These things have been for all of humanity. We want to make things. We want to make things for one another. We want to be in community. I don't think the sort of rational progression of like, oh, something might be smarter than us necessarily challenges those things unless we decide to cede our agency to these systems that are trying to prey on it. Right? We talked a little bit about social media and attention spans. For the last 10 years, because of these dark patterns, our attention has been under attack. With the rise of chatbots that I was reading a study from Collective Intelligence Project, their Global Dialogues project showed that 27.8 people had used a chatbot for emotional consolation in the past week of the people they had polled. Meaning we're connecting with a chatbot instead of one another. So the erosion of our attention span, the erosion of our community ties are eroding creativity and critical thinking, these things that are so core to who we are. We can let that happen if we give up. We can also resist it and say that we demand something better. And I think hearing from the people in the room, I think we're ready to demand something better.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nabiha. Yes, absolutely.
Can I just comment on what Roman said? Because I'm not suggesting we get rid of emotions at all. I think actually what we see is a future of more refined emotions where they're not so barbaric, but may actually be a lot more subtle. And maybe all flavors of emotions we don't even understand because we'll have larger minds. We can choose to maintain artistic appreciation. So I'm certainly not talking about mechanizing ourselves in that sense and doing away with our humanity, but actually elevating our humanity, expanding it, giving it more flavors, more subtlety, more choices.
Is there a final thought with regards to what Message just said?
I think we should give every human being a choice to either participate in this upgrade process or not. And the way it is happening right now, the decision has been made for all of you. You will be upgraded, you will be optimized, you will be replaced. We see it in employment, soon we'll see it with our bodies, and I don't know what happens at the end.
On that positive note, that sadly brings us to an end of this Doha Debates Town Hall. I want to thank the Qatar Foundation for bringing all of us together. Of course, this majlis would not be possible without you, the audience here in Doha, and our viewers all over the world on YouTube. We sought out truth and understanding. We heard powerful ideas, sharp arguments, and we heard a lot of beautiful personal reflections. Thank you everyone for sharing. We began... We began this town hall asking whether humanity is ready for an intelligence explosion. The machines are learning fast. Can we keep up with them? How do we prepare for this future? Can we even affect the outcome? Now it's your turn. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comment sections below, and let's keep this conversation going. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.